Well, good morning all, online and in present in the room. First of all, thank you for the invite, and just want to pass on how excited I think myself and my team are to be a part of this ARC. It's a issue that we're facing, and like Aaron said, with more and more data coming in, we can't manage it. We can't manage it with our eyes. The volume of data coming in, we need smarter tools to manage this. So today, on behalf of my amazing team here in Brisbane and all our collaborators across the state, I'm going to give you a bit of a background of who we are, what we do, and then throw some questions, pros and cons at you just to stimulate a bit of conversation, and then take it from there. So let's go. So today I'm going to talk about the Great Barrier Reef Catchment Loads Monitoring Program and what water quality investigations do with regards to real-time monitoring. We sit in a lovely program called Paddock to Reef. I'm not going to go through any of that kind of detail, but we're right in the middle there. And most recently, we've gone from about 25 traditional bottles and poles, discrete grab sampling, to more than 106 sites now pumping real-time data. We use a platform called Eagle.io, and that data goes to us in Brisbane or anywhere in the state, and we make decisions based on that. We now control our sites with our phones, with the web. We have algorithms running, but the thing that's really we're struggling with is this volume of data coming through and keeping that data being publicly available, and the transparency of that data and the quality of that data. So we collect sediments, nutrients and pesticides. We kind of manage that. We turn it into a couple of calculations, loads and a risk metric. And that stuff goes to various sources, and those sources of our data ingestion is growing pretty much daily, if not, daily. We have so many people now requesting our data, not only our traditional discrete data, but our real-time data as well. So this data gets used for validation of models, gets into regional report cards, it's going to portals now, real-time portals. And what we're finding is people are actually starting to use that data. Recently, we actually took a probe, one site down in the Burnett Mary offline because we had some data issues and we couldn't manage those data issues. And instantly within, well, it was actually the next day, I got a phone call, didn't even realize it, but cane growers were actually monitoring that data to then give rapid feedback to their landholders. So already we're creating the space where this real-time data is coming in and is being used in an adaptive management kind of way, which is really exciting, but also quite scary. The other thing our data is used for is verification of other monitoring programs. So we don't monitor everywhere. We don't monitor in every location. So we're not in the marine ecosystem, but we're in the terrestrial system. And now data is a line of evidence for what's happening in the marine ecosystem. The team here in Brisbane are now providing this data to two platforms, a pesticide reporting portal, and also 1622. The 1622 portal is a nitrate portal, shows river height and real-time nitrate. And the pesticide reporting portal we're calling lab real-time data. So as soon as the lab issues a report to us, it's now going live to a website. So this whole nexus of providing data instantaneously to the public is something that we believe this anomaly detection and this ARC project is going to be valuable in managing the transparency of that data, managing the quality assurance and quality control of that data by running those algorithms over them and providing good metadata coding of when there is a spike, when there might be an error, when there might be an issue with quality. What do we do? How do we do it? A little bit of background. We use these little gauging stations, double wall, cyclone proof, off the grid, telemetered. Inside we've got some brains punching the information to the website. We still do our traditional monitoring, the discrete based monitoring, and we use these ISCO avalanches. But more recently, and reason why we've gone from 25 sites to 106 sites, is we're starting to do all this in situ real-time monitoring. So we're using things like real-time acoustic Dopplers measuring velocity of the river. It also can measure the backscatter of the sediment in the river, so we can measure sediment concentrations. We're using probes like this XO2, which can measure things like turbidity, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, dissolved organic matter, various other probes that are come out from that company as well. More recently, we've adopted this probe from Germany called Trios, and they measure nitrate and a surrogate of sediment. It's not a traditional turbidity measurement. It's an absorbance measurement, but it basically measures the sediment in the water. And that shed that I showed you before, one of those in a really difficult area could cost us up to about 190 grand. And we're now moving to these kind of lower cost setups where we're using these, what we call microsites. They're dropping the cost to about 5 grand. And we've been working with a company called IntelliDesign to try and bring that cost even further down to that 5 grand mark and using these things called blue spots. So as we get cheaper, we can buy more, we can monitor in more locations. And behind all of what we do, we have a massive quality assurance and quality control program. All our standard operating procedures are generally available. And we also do a lot of training for various groups that do any water quality monitoring across the state. So why are we doing this? Why are we involved in this ARC? Why is it important that we kind of revolutionize the way we do water quality monitoring? This is a poster I presented in Denmark a few years ago. And it kind of sets the scene well in my head, at least anyway. Queensland's massive, okay? We don't have the economy like somewhere like Europe or the United States. And we have a significant number of waterways that exit to the Great Barrier Reef, over 900 of them exiting to the Great Barrier Reef. To monitor is actually expensive. Like I said, one of those big monitoring sites is 190 grand. So to get everywhere, to get better data, to get better spatial and temporal resolution, we need to bring that cost down. But then we've got more sites being monitored, and this is where we're facing now. We've got all this extra data and we're not going to get more staff to look at that data. It's quite easy to manage 25 discrete lab-based sampling programs with a set of eyes and a team. But when you start to go to 106 real-time, punching out 15-minute resolution data constantly, how do you manage that? It's very, very difficult. And this is where this ARC project is really well suited. Not only can this project help us design where the monitoring stations go and where we might adaptively change, but it's helping us manage the data coming in by running those algorithms on, picking up the spikes, watching out when a probe is getting biofouled, watching out when a probe stops working when there's data gaps. And it's important that we manage that data because generally the public will see gaps and they'll think something else. Or they'll see a spike and they might accidentally go, oh, that's a huge lot of nitrate coming through, when actually it's an error from the probe. So having this coding of metadata, having this transparency of the data, not showing the data and waiting 12 to 18 months to put the data out, putting the data out instantaneously, but with transparency around metadata, coding it and going, yes, this is a possible spike detected by algorithm 23. You can look up algorithm 23 and it says, yes, spike detection, machine learning. Sweet, move on. It might not be a spike, then you can go back and review that. But primarily we need to go down this path because of the spatial area of Queensland, the dynamic waterways that we do have, the impact on the Great Barrier Reef. We need the more spatial resolution, we need more data, and we need more instantaneously so people can adaptively do stuff on ground. I'm going to give an example of what actually has occurred with some real-time monitoring. So this is my little pyramid where we've got data at the bottom, the foundation of everything that we do. We generally turn that into information. So real-time monitoring, generating data. Information, let's talk about dissolved oxygen. So low dissolved oxygen reading from a probe in the waterway. With knowledge, most of us know that low DO or low dissolved oxygen, there might be a fish kill. If we get that kind of warning, maybe we should go and investigate why there's low DO. Maybe it's a natural thing, maybe it's not a natural thing. And with that knowledge and wisdom, we then get change. So if it's not a natural thing, if it's a pollution event, we can then adaptively do something on ground and make a change. And then therefore we're using data to manage our natural resource. Here's the example. Near Mackay, south of Mackay, there's a little creek called Sandy Creek, and regularly we get some fish kills. Fish kills as a result of dissolved oxygen dropping down too low. In 2016, this fish kill occurred. This is a photo from the pollution hotline, and pretty much the incident has occurred. There's now been environmental harm. So water quality investigations decided that we'd put in a dissolved organic sensor, and we used a platform called Eagle.io to help us set out an alert. So we put this sensor in, real-time data, and we saw a trend, and you can see from your screen left to right, a trend starting to go down. And then there was these 2 periods where Eagle.io was able to text and send out an email, hey, there's something going on, there might be a fish kill about to occur. Subsequently, we saw a massive drop after an event occurred of DO. What happened was the regional officers responsible for that region were able to proactively go out and talk to the company that was doing the discharge effluent and say, you're not meant to release it right now because the waterways are too low and there is an event occurring here where there might be a fish kill. And subsequently, we're able to avoid a fish kill. So there's that proactive monitoring. That's only one site. Queensland's massive, 900 rivers. How are we going to do that? We have to now look at surrogate sensors. Those DO probes with the Y-size sensors, they cost quite a lot of money. Can we use conductivity? Can we use temperature? Can we use other sources of information to help us do this? Here's another example. I'm going to get into the bit of the anomaly detection. There's a mine out the west of Cairns called Balgammon. It has a big tailings dam. It's an abandoned mine. You have an upstream site, which is quite beautiful. You have a downstream site, which is quite impacted. The tailings dam has quite acidic water in it. We were able to put in some real-time monitoring to say, is this mine being managed well? Do we need to lime the tailings pit better? Do we need to manage the runoff from this site? The blue line is downstream and the black line is upstream. So in between the blue and the black line is the mine. There was a period of data coming through, and then all of a sudden we saw a drop in pH at the downstream site. And then we went, well, is that actually a result of the upstream? It could be natural, but no, it wasn't, because we had our upstream site showing that data. So then we were able to quickly talk to the management team for that mine, and they were able to do some adaptive change on ground. Yet again, that data, information, knowledge, wisdom, change on ground to helping our manage our natural resources. But here's some data from the exact same site. I'm only focusing on one site. I'm actually focusing on the downstream site now. And we started to see something weird happen. The magenta line is the pH line on your screen. And the pH was increasing. That didn't make much sense to us. And then all of a sudden we had this massive drop. And now, if you hadn't looked at this data in depth and didn't understand the background, and this was just publicly available data, you might actually think it's another drop. It's another event occurring from this mine discharging water. But no, what was actually happening was the people on the ground hadn't followed our quality management protocols. The probe had started to biofoul and the probe was starting to drift. Then when they actually went out and changed the probe, you can actually see how it significantly drops and actually goes back to a very similar baseline as what was happening before. So that's not an event. It's not what's actually occurring in the ground. It's an anomaly. And this is why we're really happy to be in part of this ARC, because with 106 of these, we can't be over all of this data. Now, we were over this data because it was a specific site and we had lots of interest in it. But this will be occurring at all of our 106 sites, and we need these anomaly detections to help us. Why do we need it? I truly believe in this whole data, information, knowledge, wisdom concept, but a lot of science these days is going to conspiracy theories. And sometimes, either wrongly or rightly, either through misinformation or through good information, people can jump to conclusions and come up with the wrong outcomes. And transparency, scientific transparency, is paramount under this. We are no longer in the place where we can hold back data, but we're also no longer in the place that we can just give out data without the metadata coding, without the added information. And this is where this ARC, adding that data, that metadata about the anomalies, is so important. So just quickly before I finish, I just want to throw out there's no answers. They're just questions. They're pros and cons. They're questions, a bit of a mix. Proactively responding to data is very important. You've got to keep that in the back of your mind. People will start to proactively respond to data. How confident are we in the data? Is it just about anomalies? Is it actually not about anomalies? There's a whole spectrum before that. Is there a framework on managing good, moderate, bad? Is bad good data? I don't know. The cost of doing high accuracy, high precision data is no longer palatable. We have to move to these cheaper surrogate sensors. We have to go to these lower cost sensors to infill the gaps, to get better data so we can manage our natural resource. Does the cost outweigh no data? That's a good question. Modeling does fit a part here. What is the balance between monitoring everywhere versus modeling everywhere? Those two, monitoring and modeling, there is a nexus there that's got to be balanced. You do need both. You can't have one and not the other. They have to work together. Maintenance and calibration. While your analytical costs and your logistics costs go down, your maintenance and calibration goes up. Are there enough sites across the state or where you're monitoring? Are those sites, should they be there for 10 years or just 1 year? Can you move them? The expectations once data goes out, like I mentioned that cane grower example, the Bureau of Meteorology had a really good example. They put up the radar data about 10 years ago, never thought anybody would look at it. I guarantee everybody in the room here and everybody online, whenever there's a storm coming, you jump onto that website. It's one of the most hit websites. You put out data, you will be surprised who starts to use it. We were surprised that we put our nitrate data out, took one probe offline and we got a call the next day. Where's that data gone? It's very interesting once you put data out there. Huge volumes of data coming through. You can't do it with eyes. You have to have algorithms. Having this high temporal data gives us so much information about the natural system. So we actually can see these pollution events occurring from non-natural systems. Whereas with one grab sample, you wouldn't have seen it. These lower cost surrogate sensors, they might have higher rates of anomalies and issues, but I truly believe that with a greater density, you can build smart algorithms and machine learning and models to bring that in. And anomalies, we don't have to be perfect anymore as long as we have transparency. Put it all out there, metadata code it, show you have good QA/QC, and just be transparent about what you're doing. And I really think we can get better data. So where now? What are we doing? Well, we'll always have our traditional high precision, high accuracy sensors. We call them sentinel sites, but we will start to infill with cheaper, lower cost surrogate sensors. That will help us get there. We will need the smarter algorithms. We'll need the smarter anomaly detection. We'll need real-time validation of our data as well. We need those spatial and temporal models to help us know when and where to monitor. We need that adaptive loop between modeling and monitoring to be stronger. We need better telemetry coverage, so Telstra, get on board, cheaper running costs, and we need those smarter portals to turn data into information and knowledge, and ultimately getting wisdom and change, which is why we want to, why we are here, why we are doing what we do. Just some plug outs for us. I won't have time, but they'll be on the screen on the recording. There's a QR code for our 1622 nitrate site. Here's our pesticide reporting portal, QR code for that as well. And if you want to learn more about my amazing team in Brisbane and all our collaborators across the state, check out our story maps. And thank you.